If we told you that the police were able to predict crime before it was even committed, you might think we were talking about the plot of a science fiction film. There has been one. But police in Birmingham are trialling technology which could help them do just that.
They've got a computer which recognises burglary hotspots and works on the idea that criminals follow patterns. And West Midlands correspondent Phil Mackey has had exclusive access to the scheme. He's with us this morning. Well, the film was Minority Report, of course, decided who might be at risk of committing a crime. This is which areas might be at risk of having their houses burgled. How does it work?
You were just thinking a moment ago it might just be when people are on holiday, but it's more complicated than that. It takes into account a number of factors, so they're able to analyse criminal behaviour. They factor in the landscape of a street and how houses are designed, where the exit routes are from that street, for instance, and also the crime statistics. They pump all of that into a computer and they come up with a suggestion of where the most vulnerable places are and at what time. Now, this is one of the new big ideas in policing, and it's something that's being tested at the same time in California. The biggest and most extensive trial is taking place in Birmingham, the city of Birmingham, and I've been out to have a look.
There were 8,000 burglaries in Birmingham last year. Sami Khalil is the latest victim.
So he broke that door and then he took his laptop from here.
Thieves got in through a kitchen window and ransacked all the bedrooms. Sammy's now part of a unique experiment. In test areas, West Midlands police officers are making sure homes which have been burgled are made more resilient.
We're here today to deliver you some crime prevention equipment.
But it isn't just Sammy who'll get this help. Police are using statistics to predict where the burglars will strike next. Studies show that if a house is burgled once, there's a high risk it'll be hit again within a week. Adjoining properties are at a high risk too. And that's not all. So are the houses next door to them.
Well, this is one of the test areas in Birmingham, and there's been a spate of burglaries along this street recently. But the next phase of the pilot is when we really get into the realms of science fiction, because using the data and various algorithms, they reckon they can calculate exactly when and where the burglars will be out committing their crimes.
I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks.
In the film Minority Report, Tom Cruise plays a detective working in the pre-crime unit. But perhaps the idea that the police can intervene before a crime's committed isn't that far-fetched after all. The experiment in Birmingham is using the latest theories and analysis.
We take data from the police, we run that data through our software, and this generates predictions as to where crime is most likely in, let's say, the next few days. And this generates a map which can help us to identify the exact locations where crimes are most likely, and hence can be used by the police to deploy resources.
And that's what they're doing at the headquarters of Operation Swordfish in Birmingham, though old-fashioned police work will be just as important.
Who do we think is committing the crime? Let's get all over them and stop them doing it. That will be most successful. But we still need to get out there and patrol and try and deter crime taking place in the first place. So for those officers who are doing that, what's the best way of doing it? And we think probably this might be the best way, but we don't know. And that's the whole thing with an experiment. You don't know till you analyse it afterwards.
I was very scared and feeling unsafe.
There's been another burglary and officers are at a neighbour's house. The experiment's well underway, but the results won't be known until next year.
So it's one thing to see whether crimes are about to be committed, but then if you sort that out, isn't there a danger you can push the crime somewhere else?
I mean, they factored that in as well. So they've divided Birmingham up into test areas and control areas. In the control areas, they won't be carrying out the predictive pilot, just ordinary policing, so they'll come and dust for fingerprints and get back to you when they capture somebody. They won't be doing all of that additional work. And also they've created a sort of buffer zone in between those areas to try and get rid of those distortions. Now, what they're hoping, and the early results from California are that with burglaries, they've knocked them down by about 10 to 15%. Now, if that worked across Birmingham, that would be more than 1,000 fewer burglaries in a year. But they also think that if it does work, I mean, I have to admit there's a healthy scepticism from within the police force about this, but if it does work, they reckon they could use the same theories on different crimes. So, for instance, yes, they could predict a riot.
OK. Phil, thanks very much.
25 minutes past 6. Phil, thanks very much indeed. Do get in touch with us this morning if you have a view on Phil's story, or if you have a view on other stories. One of the main things we're talking about this morning, GCSEs, of course, in this chain.